I just brought one of our favorite family desserts out of the fridge. You are definitely going to want to stay tuned to see this recipe. Hi, welcome to the Peaceful Home. I'm so glad you've joined me today for a dessert recipe. Now, I made these yesterday. These are called Millionaire bars. These type of bars are very common in England. They're eaten at tea time. And this is a family favorite. My daughter Michaela made these years ago, and they quickly became like my birthday request. I would ask her to make them. We even renamed them May's Millionaire Bars because this was her specialty. Now here's the thing. I told you I just made these yesterday, and when I went to get them, look how much is missing. Like, as soon as your family figures out these are in the house, watch out, because everybody will go and sneak some of the bars, but this is still going to be enough for the gift that I'm giving. If you're new here, I'm Teresa Elling. I'm a professional organizer, a parenting coach, a wife and homeschool mom to 6 graduated kids, and we are doubly blessed with 6 grandchildren and 2 more on the way. Let's dive into the recipe. I will show you what I did yesterday, and then we'll come back and we'll slice these up.
For this recipe, you will need 2 cups of flour, 2/3 cup of sugar, half teaspoon salt, 2 cubes of butter, 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk, and a package of milk chocolate chips or milk chocolate Hershey bars. Take the 2 cups of flour and add that to a food processor or to a bowl if you don't have one. Add the half teaspoon of salt and the 2/3 cup of sugar and give it a quick mix. Make sure you use chilled butter cut into pieces, and you will want to pulse this in the food processor until you have a little bit smaller than pea-sized pieces of butter incorporated into the flour. Now, don't overmix this. And if you do not have a food processor, you can use a pastry cutter or 2 knives to slice and cut the butter into the flour. If you feel the dough isn't quite holding together, you can add an egg yolk or an additional 2 or 3 tablespoons of chilled butter. Pulse that in and your dough is complete. You'll need a 9 by 13 pan, and you'll want to cut a piece of parchment paper to fit. Alternatively, you can use aluminum foil and press that in the bottom of the pan and grease it. Then you'll want to, using your fingertips, press the dough into the bottom of the pan, getting it nice and compact and as smooth as possible. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees and place your pan on the middle rack. Set your timer for 16 to 18 minutes, and you'll want to check it maybe a minute or 2 before. It's a lot easier to put it back in, of course, and cook it longer. Here it's a bit too pale, so it's going back in the oven for another couple of minutes. When I bring it back out, you can see that the edges are just slightly browned, and it maybe needs 1 or 2 minutes more. In a saucepan over medium heat, place 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk. Now you will want to use a whisk to whisk this constantly as the heat is beginning to rise. It's better to have it a little on the lower side and turn it up if needed. In this case, I actually began to burn my caramel, and I'm going to show you what happened. As I whisk, what I do is I take a little wooden spoon and I make sure to scrape the corners of the pan. And that's the quickest way to see if your sauce is starting to thicken or if you're beginning to burn it. Obviously, I have an electric stove, which is slightly harder to control than a gas range. And I've only burnt this before once of the many times I've made it, but of course I did it today. And you can see the brown lumps that were forming as I was scraping up burnt bits from the bottom. So the solution here, I'm sorry this is a bad camera angle, is to pour the entire contents through a sieve into a bowl. Get rid of all the lumps and the burnt stuff, and then go and wash your pan completely. Put the mixture through a sieve one more time. Get rid of all those little bits. Now it's back in your clean pan and you're basically starting over. Bring it back up to medium heat, whisking constantly, scraping the corners, and then you're going to want to switch entirely to a wooden spoon and put the whisk aside. To cook this caramel for about 15 minutes, stirring constantly, and you can see here how it's beginning to thicken. And you want to keep cooking it until it thickens fully and begins to deepen in color. I did not realize that I didn't have the camera on when I put the caramel onto the shortbread. Once you do that and you spread it out, then you're going to sprinkle the chocolate chips over the top. Let them sit for a few minutes and look at this. They have just melted and they spread so easily. Alternatively, you can lay whole Hershey bars on the top to cover. And again, let them sit about 5 minutes and then they will become nice and melted and spreadable. Once your chocolate is spread all over the top of the caramel, you can put on any type of toppings that you like. I chose to do some coarse sea salt. You can do flaked sea salt. And I also did a few sprinkles in white and gold just to make it a bit festive for Christmas. You can put these in the refrigerator, or I usually put them in the freezer to speed up the process of getting everything chilled. When I removed these, and I used a knife to get the edges where I didn't have parchment, when I lifted them out, you can see how flexible they are. This means they really have not chilled completely. This whole dough is very soft and squishy, so they needed to go back in to the freezer. And remember, you're using the freezer to chill these. You do not want them frozen solid when you go to cut them.
So going around the edges with a knife or a spatula really helps. And then going underneath, wow, this is just gonna lift out in one giant bar. And this makes it so much easier to slice rather than trying to cut it in the pan. I like cutting them this way because when they are chilled, they're a bit hard. There's that little extra one. I'll just have to save that for myself. But you can get some good downward pressure. You can also just cut them into squares. You can also do this second cut as an angle. And then you get these little diamond shape, which are really pretty. And actually, those are way too big, so I'm going to cut that a second time. Have a little bit smaller pieces. These are very rich, but so good. Now, these diamond shapes are really nice. The disadvantage is that you end up with these little odd shaped pieces on the end. But honestly, if you're giving this as a gift, your family gets all the little end pieces. So that's not a problem at all. And you can just plate these to serve at Christmas, to take to a cookie exchange, or I'm going to show you how I am using this to give as a gift. I will post below the video of gift giving with thrifted finds, and you'll be able to check that out and get some ideas for really beautiful but inexpensive gift giving. I believe I mentioned yesterday in the video that I did not give enough time to get an amber color on the caramel. So you can see that the caramel is pretty blonde. It almost matches the crust. And I prefer for it to be a little richer color, but I had an appointment and I had to go and I did not have the time to sit on that very low heat and let it cook a little longer and develop a richer color. But that's ultimately what you want. But this does not change the flavor at all. I can't tell you how good these are. It's kind of like the best Twix bar you could ever have, but it has all the same elements. These are so good, so rich and delicious. I've never met anyone that doesn't like them, but I suppose if you don't like caramel or chocolate, they might not be your thing. This is the first time that I did a little bit of sea salt on the top, and I love the taste. Just that little bit of a salty edge, and I think that really makes it. I will probably do it this way from now on. Well, I hope you'll give these a try. Comment below, let me know if you do make them and how they turn out for you. And if you were more patient in doing the caramel than I was. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas, and thank you so much for joining me today on The Peaceful Home.